the unfortunate thing is that there's always a lag time behind on real factual truth.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm trying to do is help people get ahead of the lag. You know how many people died between 1950 and then the 1980s when they finally started saying, hey, we need to put a warning box on the cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you go to Australia, they not only have a warning on it, they have a diseased heart. They have a pair of smoked out lungs on the carton of the cigarettes. You can't just, I mean, it's pretty atrocious to buy a pack of cigarettes in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
So it just tells you that, we're just really behind when it comes on what really heals the body.
Yeah, I've seen they're trying to petition dairy products, especially cheese, to put labels here in the United States that it could cause breast cancer. And, the FDA, they don't want to do it, but a lot of people are fighting for it. A lot of doctors who are aware of how dairy can promote cancer. So it's
Right.
going to be interesting to see, 5, 10, 15 years from now, how when we walk into a supermarket, what it's going to look like and what the labels are going to be saying. You worked for the FDA, and you mentioned that you've seen or heard about court cases of people being harmed from medicine, and you talk about how our healthcare system is sick care system. What should somebody do who has to take certain medications? Who, for instance, my mother, she had a double lung transplant, so there's certain anti-rejection medications she has to take. Or for me, what I'm going through, I'm on certain hormones that the doctor is like, you have to be on these hormones until your precursor turns around. Do you say go against what they say and don't take those medications? Or do you feel like you can have a balance?
Well, because of how the laws are set up, I could never say don't do what your doctor says.
It's true.
But what I always tell people is that it's sort of like I talked about in the beginning. I realized me being a pharmacist was an advantage.
Mm.
Having the understanding of modern medicine and having the understanding of natural medicine is a great advantage when you come into contact with somebody who is on medications. You understand the impact of that medication on their body, both the side effects and also the biochemistry behind it.
Mm-hmm.
But you also understand what certain foods do and then also what certain herbs could do.
Mm-hmm.
And so in an ideal situation, what you want to do is use both until you don't have to use the modern medicine.
Yeah.
Make your way, transition toward natural medicine as quickly and as healthy as possible. And so that's what I'm always sort of gauging people, because I always tell people, like, if I step off the curb and get hit by a bus, do not take me to an herbalist. Take me to the
exactly.
emergency room. Like, I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
But because modern medicine does an amazing job in the acute setting. So if I get hit by a bus or get cut or shot or things like that, modern medicine is perfect for. So in the short term, it's really great. But long term, like, it is not a good thing. And so I always tell people, make sure you're transitioning toward nature as quickly as possible.
Yeah, my oncologist, the first meeting that I had with her, I asked her, okay, I know this is your plan, I'll do it. What should I be doing at home? Should I change my diet? I'm thinking of going vegan. I also read a lot about IV infusions, like high doses of vitamin C. And her reaction was just like, diet isn't going to do anything. You can eat whatever you want. I'm just like,
clueless.
I looked at her and
Clueless.
I was just like, I can't believe, I understand you don't want to advocate for only one thing, but to sit there and say that.
I'm trying to tell you, you have to understand, they literally have a layman's perspective on nutrition. And it's not because they're trying to be evil. It's
Yeah.
because they don't know. Everything that we've been taught gave no indication that nutrition or herbs can make any major impact on any disease state.
Mm-hmm.
It's always looked at as a supplement and not the foundation.
Yeah.
And because of that, they're always going to say that will do nothing for you.
Yeah.
Because they don't understand how healing works.
Yeah.
So,
And I think this is important to take your health back into your own hands. And this is one reason why I wanted to start this podcast. I wanted to have these deep conversations with alternative type of healers and doctors, and, you know, so that way we can educate ourselves, me and my listeners, through
absolutely.
people like you, you know. So I really appreciate you taking the time to answer my questions. I do have a couple more questions.
Okay.
I know that when it comes to weight loss or just health in general, I've seen it with myself going vegan. You know, I was TMI, everybody watching or listening, constantly constipated, had issues for years, was constantly having to take certain teas or, you know, supplements to try. Now that I'm vegan, I don't have those issues anymore. Just eating lots of plants and vegetables, fruits. So how many times a day is a person supposed to go to the bathroom? And, you know, is going to the bathroom only a couple times a week, you know, yes, it will cause weight gain, but how does that impact your health overall? Does it have a negative connotation? Does it hurt you in some way?
You should have a bowel movement every meal. Now, if you eat like a piece of fruit, you're not going to have a bowel movement. But if you have for every full meal, you should have a bowel movement that day. That's what I've seen with people who make the transition. That's what I've seen with people who are in my group detox. Mm-hmm. Some of them in the beginning even have more bowel movements than the meals they have during the day.
Probably because they have so much backed up.
Indeed. The average person has between 10 and 25 pounds of undigested food sitting in their gut. So fecal matter just sitting in the gut. So most people don't really have a belly. What they have is an intestine or colon full of poop.
Wow.
Just sitting there breaking up. And so as a result, you know, it has become normal to be irregular and not have bowel movements because 70% of the population is constipated. Mm-hmm. You know, like most people are eating a huge amount of dairy. Most people are eating a huge amount of meat. And none of those things have fiber in them. None of those things have hydration in them. And that's what is required for a bowel movement. If you don't have fiber in your meals, if you don't have hydration in your meals, because you got to think about it, you can juice fruits and vegetables, right, and get hydration out of it. You can't juice meat and dairy. There's no hydration in it. There's no fiber in it. And if you buy things over the counter in a can, box, bag, those things have had the fiber ripped out of them.
Yeah.
So you're not eating fiber in that way too. So that's why the vast majority of people are irregular. It's common, not normal. And there's a difference between the two. People are looking at common, meaning like the vast majority of people today in America are actually either overweight or obese. That's common, but that's not normal.
Yeah.
That's not how it was 50 years ago. Okay.
Yeah. And it's the same thing too when it comes to PMS. You know, I suffered from bad PMS, and, you know, I would talk to my doctor and she would say, that's normal. You know, it's being a woman. And I'm like, no, I don't think this is normal. And then I would talk to my friends and they're like, oh yeah, I go through that too. And I'm like, yeah, but this shouldn't be this way. And then I started doing research, and there, like you were saying, the PCOS or PMDD it's called, or, you know, I had fibroids. I didn't even know I had fibroids. You know, I was like, who would have known? I didn't know. And luckily, what I did was my doctor, she said it was normal, but I knew something was wrong and I knew something was off. So I went to a website called letsgetchecked.com. and I purchased an at-home hormone test. And once I got my results that my hormone levels, my estrogen was way
Estrogen
high.
was, yep. It's
And
called estrogen dominance.
yep. So that's what I had, estrogen dominance. And I called my doctor and I was like, I want to see a specialist. I know something's wrong. And then they told me, they checked me, and that's when we found my fibroids. So, and then I had to get surgery, which I wish I would have went vegan then, but
yeah. And that's why in my book, I call our healthcare system a sick care system. Is because in today's healthcare system, most things are normalized. They're normal. So when you go in there, unless you are in a dire state, they're going to say, no, that's normal. Mm-hmm. And it's not normal at all. In most cases, when you go in and the lab results that they choose to actually take that day come up normal, they're going to send you right home.
Yeah.
And there's people who go back and forth with the doctor because they know something is intuitively wrong in their body. But the doctor is like, well, the labs haven't said anything to me. Yeah. But the doctor hasn't asked them, how much water do you drink? How regular are your bowel movements? How much sleep are you getting? What's your energy levels like? Tell me about your period. Mm-hmm. Like, they're not asking these questions that really are like check engine lights to the body. And so as a result, you know, every illness is virtually normal. Even if you go in there with high blood pressure, they're like, oh, everybody got high blood pressure. I'm just give you this 5-10 milligrams, you'll be fine. They don't give you any real advice about what you can do to sort of get out of that pre-diabetic state or that low hypertension state. And it's just because A, they don't know, and B, because disease unfortunately has become normalized.
Yeah.